fuel are also enough. We don't have a problem.
But a tour of this airfield paints a less optimistic picture of what the rebels have at their disposal. Rusting Soviet-era fighter planes that haven't left the tarmac in years. All part of Gaddafi's strategy to prevent the army from ever threatening his rule.
The army was dismantled years ago. The regime is concentrating only on security units.
The victory they're celebrating is incomplete as long as Muammar Gaddafi remains in control of cities in the west. And most Libyans fear he will not be defeated without more bloodshed. Jackie Rowland, Al Jazeera in eastern Libya.
The European Union approved its own slate of sanctions against Gaddafi's government. The EU states approved an arms embargo as well as a visa ban and asset freeze. Europe is also considering imposing a no-fly zone. Meeting in Geneva, the UN Human Rights Council is considering similar action on a no-fly zone. US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and the US Ambassador to the United Nations were among those urging Gaddafi to step down immediately. Their comments came as the US President met with the United Nations Secretary General in Washington to discuss their response. John Terrett reports.
After 2 weeks of beating around the bush, the White House came out punching over Libya on Monday. Spokesman Jay Carney says Gaddafi's lost all legitimacy in the eyes of his people and the world and must go.
He is no longer in a position to credibly lead his nation. And he is, in the meantime, inflicting horrific violence on the people he claims to serve and the people he claims love him.
Earlier, President Obama met the UN chief at the White House. On a visit to the US Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, Ban Ki-moon drew parallels between Libya and the past.
Once again, we are being tested. In Libya, a regime that has lost legitimacy has declared war on its own people. It's up to us, the community of nations, to stand against this crime.
The US ambassador to the UN was less diplomatic about Colonel Gaddafi's latest statements on TV.
It sounds just frankly delusional. And when he can laugh in talking to American and international journalists while he is slaughtering his own people, it only underscores how unfit he is to lead and how disconnected he is from reality.
To enforce sanctions against Libya, the Pentagon is repositioning forces near the North Africa coast as the US and its allies consider options surrounding a possible no-fly zone. The Pentagon doesn't name the assets being redeployed, but they're thought to be the aircraft carrier USS Enterprise and the amphibious assault ship USS Kearsarge, plus the command vessel USS Mount Whitney. Also Monday, the US Treasury froze $30 billion of financial assets controlled by Colonel Gaddafi and his family, held in US banks. The move was described by the White House as the largest single financial freeze in US history. John Terrett, Al Jazeera, Washington.
Muammar Gaddafi has told the US network ABC that Al-Qaeda is to blame for the unrest in his country.
No demonstration at all in the streets. No one against us. Against me for what? Because I am not president.
But then
they love me, all my people with me. They love me all.
But if they do love you...
They will die to protect me, my people.
If you say they do love you, then why are they capturing Benghazi and they say they're against you there? Why are they in Zawiya?
It is a guide. It is guide, not my people. It is guide. Guide, yes.
Who would leave his homeland? Why do I leave my homeland? Why do I leave Libya?
Well, we're slowly getting an idea of the scale of the humanitarian emergency, but the truth of the matter is that aid workers are still not able to get into Libya and fighting is ongoing. So there's no accurate death toll, only estimates. The UN's humanitarian chief, Valerie Amos, has told Al Jazeera of reports that between 600 and 2,000 people have already been killed in Tripoli. Italy said 5 days ago that estimates of 1,000 dead elsewhere were credible, and more than 100,000 people have fled into Egypt, Tunisia and Niger, according to the United Nations. The United Nations is now mobilizing its agencies to respond to the crisis, but Hillel Neuer from the UN Watch, which keeps an eye on the UN and its performance, is very critical of how the United Nations has engaged with Libya in the past.
Not only was Libya elected to the Human Rights Council, but sitting on its advisory committee is a man named Jean Ziegler, a Swiss politician who created the Muammar Gaddafi Human Rights Prize in 1989, which has been given to Fidel Castro, Hugo Chavez, a Holocaust denier, Roger Garaudy, and recently to Erdogan, the Prime Minister of Turkey. So the United Nations also chose Libya to head its World Conference on Racism from 2007 to 2009, the Durban Review Conference. So time and again, the United Nations has rewarded this murderous, racist regime. It's a regime that has systematically persecuted over 1 million black Africans in that country. They're now being used cynically as mercenaries. So all of this has been known, and that the United Nations has not only turned a blind eye to these abuses, but has rewarded this regime. Libya was also the president of the General Assembly only a year ago. Libya, a couple years ago, was sitting on the Security Council. Every door that the United Nations has was open to Libya. Colonel Gaddafi's daughter, Aisha Gaddafi, was a quote-unquote goodwill ambassador of the UNDP.
The United Nations World Food Programme began shipping food supplies to countries bordering Libya. 80 tons of high-energy biscuits have just arrived in Tunisia. The World Health Organization is also sending medical supplies to the Egyptian border with Libya. The UN says tens of thousands of people have been leaving Libya because of the unrest. In Tunisia, 2 ministers have resigned from the caretaker government. It comes just a day after the Prime Minister bowed out following a wave of protests on Friday and Saturday, which left 5 people dead. Nazanin Moshiri has the latest from Tunis.
There is a heavy security presence in the capital. For the first time, alongside the police and army, the National Guard. Working together, they say, to maintain order. In the past few days, several people have been killed in clashes here. The escalation of violence, something not seen since Ben Ali fled. The interim Prime Minister Mohamed Ghannouchi has gone, but the protesters remain outside his old office. They say their demonstrations are peaceful, all the trouble caused by armed militia who infiltrated their ranks. Their demands, the resignation of the entire government. How long do you intend to stay here?
For all my life, to save the future of my children and the children of mine. I will stay all my life.
This is the man who wants to bring calm. Badji Kaid Zebsi, an 84-year-old politician. He served under Tunisia's post-independence leader Habib Bourguiba. Mohamed Abu is a lawyer imprisoned during Ben Ali's reign. He says the current administration is facing an impossible task.
It seems people want to accept half solutions. The people got rid of the Ben Ali regime in this revolution, and they don't want to go back to the past. The problem is that people are not used to political matters, which requires compromise.
Tunisia is still a country in turmoil. Unable to move on from its past, there's no mood of reconciliation here. It seems the revolution that toppled Ben Ali many weeks ago still isn't over.